It feels so good, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. Yes. Keep pushing those buttons, Jim. From Minneapolis, it's Wednesday night, December 18th, 2024. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 187 if you're keeping score at home. Our guest tonight is You Know Her and You Love Her from RedState.com and her Substack feed at AsTheGirlTurns.com. Jennifer Oliver O'Connell is joining us here. She's very festive. She has her Santa hat on, and we love that sort of stuff. Now, I just have to apologize to you again. We have in the description for the show tonight on our social medias, we have the fact that we're taking phone calls, and we're not, because Blog Talk Radio is down again. Now, they're going out of business next month. I also have been advertising that tomorrow night, Thursday the 19th, is going to be our last show on Blog Talk Radio, but we're not on tonight because we couldn't connect. And I'm assuming we haven't been able to connect for about 2 weeks. I'm assuming we won't tomorrow night either. So it's a done deal now. It's unfortunate. Santa's going to be joining us tomorrow night. He's calling from the North Pole, and we were gonna take phone calls for Santa. God knows how that was going to work. But yeah, so he will be here, but you won't be on the phone talking to him, unfortunately. So I don't know what to make of that. A lot of buttons, folks. A lot of buttons. But anyway, Jennifer is here tonight, and we're gonna have a great conversation with her. And then after that, we got a bit of news about the drones, news about some UFO stuff, that sort of thing. So without any further ado, let's get right to it, shall we? Here's a commercial break, and we'll be back to Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. Stay tuned, please. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about Conk News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. Conk News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but Conk News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What Conk News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. And collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to conk.com to check it out. That's conk.com, 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 Conk News. Jennifer, that's theme music just for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess you're not Santa, but you're Mrs. Claus, I suppose. I don't know. Or something like that. You're the Alabama Claus.
Alabama Claus.
Joining us from her home in Alabama, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell, a writer for AsTheGirlTurns.com and RedState.com. Lovely to see you, Mrs. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Jim. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, unfortunately, your cohort Jeff Meyer couldn't join us tonight, but
I know.
you more than make up. I can't talk, Jennifer. Why am I on the radio? I don't understand. I really don't. I don't understand this at all. But you more than make up for it, something like that. Whatever I'm trying to say.
I feel you. I get you.
Yeah, you feel it. I know it's like other people, they feel it too. So. Here's the deal. I want to talk. We got a lot of stuff to discuss here, and I get this mostly. I went through some of the stuff you've written on RedState the last few days, and you've been harping about this, and for good reason. And basically, not a lot of other people have, about both the acting Secretary of Labor and the elected or the appointed, the upcoming supposedly Secretary of Labor. Both of them, these two women. And okay, first of all. Before you even get into that, here's my. I want you to answer a question. What happened to unions in the United States? I mean, they have basically most. Okay, like I think there's 26 states now that are right to work where you don't have to join the union if you don't want to. Most people like not to. You know,
Yep.
now, my theory is that I think most people have decided unions are corrupt, but that's my theory. What's yours?
Your theory is correct. There are 27 right to work
Okay.
states.
I was off by one.
Michigan, we won't go into that, but they were stupid enough to get rid of theirs. But 27 states that are proudly right to work. It's in Alabama. It's in our Constitution. Yay. So we're not interested in the union corruption. They make promises they cannot keep. I'll use an example of the Mercedes-Benz plant here in Tuscaloosa. They were attempting to unionize, and they gave them the right to come in and do their thing, even though Alabama is just like, we really would rather not have unions. We're not for this, but it's up to the people. They did what they needed to do.
Right.
And the people were like, I'm sorry, you're making promises you can't keep. Our benefits are cool. And we have here's the kicker. We have a good working relationship with our people, and unions would disrupt that. So unions paint themselves as, oh, we're the savior of the people and better wages and worker protections, blah, 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 when really they're just a divisive insertion into the employer-employee relationship, bringing all types of restrictions and rules, and also bringing all types of divisions. So the Alabama workers at the Mercedes plant rejected it. And Shawn Fain, who is the president of the Auto Workers Union, was like, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And their strong arm tactics, here's the reason why they need to do these strong arm tactics like this, like the PRO Act, to get rid of right to work, is because they are less than 10% of public sector. Less than 10% of public sector have unions, thanks to the Supreme Court decision. It's escaping my mind at this moment, but I remember it. That basically 2018 Supreme Court decision that says you are not required to pay union dues. Yeah, they got a union there, whatever. You're not required to join. You're not required to pay.
Yeah, because the law was in some states, the right work law was that you don't have to join the union, but if there's a union in your shop, you still have to pay the dues, right? That was the thing.
No, okay. That there are some industries that are unionized, yes, but you are not required to pay dues to that union, and a lot of people don't know that.
No,
they don't necessarily agree with what the union does. They don't. I mean, the teachers union, for example, teachers can opt out of that. Yeah, they don't have to pay anything, but they make it sound like, oh, if you don't do this, you don't get blah 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 blah. It's just the Janus decision. The 2018 Janus decision was the one that basically said you are not required to align yourself with a union if you don't want to.
And you're saying that, and I totally agree with you, with the fact that that at worst it's an interference in the worker employee relationship. But even if it's most innocuous, it's a grift, isn't it?
No, big time. And the people who are benefiting are the Liz Schuler of AFL-CIO, Shawn Fain. These are the people who are benefiting off of this. Their big salaries, fomenting garbage, funding political campaigns. I mean, that's all they do. They're still automating. They are still offsourcing jobs to AI and China and other places. So they really aren't living up to their press. They resent people who want to do their own thing, who like relating to the people that they work with in a different way, and they and they're a dying breed. And so in order to stop themselves from dying, in order to keep that gravy train going, first of all, they install secretaries of labor and people on the National Labor Relations Boards who are totally union acolytes. and do their bidding. And then they try to strong arm and regulate small businesses and independent contractors out of existence.
I look at this so kind of the way I look at PBS or public broadcasting, and that is, you could make an argument that 50, 60, 70 years ago, the unions were maybe, their union membership could be justified and maybe did something, but it's completely outmoded now. I mean, public broadcasting, the same thing. 60 years ago, you could say this accomplished a noble function. Now it's just worthless. I mean, we're doing this on 15 cents, and and how much money? Oh God, I just heard how much PBS gets, like $960 million a year or something like that.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. And so, you've very eloquently stated here what I thought, and that is the public being employees have generally resoundingly rejected unions because no one's going to see a really benefit in it, and so they're trying to keep this going basically by laws and coercion, right? All right, so explain now. Is the acting secretary, is her name Linda Sue? Is that right?
Julie Sue.
Sue. Okay, and then
Julie Sue. She was the labor secretary for California. She was Gavin Newsom's labor secretary.
Oh, that's a great thing to brag about.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So illustrious. Yeah. And underneath her watch, California suffered 36 billion in unemployment fraud. It's like she totally changed all of the rules and allowed all this fraud. Scott Peterson in prison was getting an unemployment check. Foreigners out in Dubai were getting unemployment checks. I mean, this was what happened during the pandemic.
And explain to me, I know you moved from California to Alabama relatively recently in the last year. So, and I get this confused. I'm not quite up to speed on all this, but California basically has a state version of the PRO Act, right?
Correct. They were the test case. AB 5, Assembly Bill 5, was written and pushed through by the labor unions, thanks to the evil Lorena Gonzalez, who is now head of California Federation of Labor. That was her prize for pushing this garbage through. So it outlawed independent contracting.
Right.
You are an independent contractor, 1099 person. They claimed it was that's their claim. Oh, so many people are misclassified and they shouldn't be independent contractors. And there are laws on the books, first of all, that enforce that. Secondly, having this broad definition, this thing where you can't work for the same industry or else you're not an independent contractor. It's like, how stupid is that? They have to write an exemption law to exempt 100 more, thousands of more people, musicians, writers like me.
Right.
It's a mess. And at least 5 million people, if not more, lost their livelihoods.
Yeah. And so in California, it's basically been a massive failure, right?
It's been a massive failure.
Right.
I forget who did the study once again. Go read my work. You'll find that. But there was a study done by an institute, and they discovered that not only did AB 5 not increase union membership or paid W-2 jobs, not only did it decrease 1099, it also decreased regular employment. It killed it on all ends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the result of it has been disaster, but they ignored that and say, well, let's do this nationwide because everybody needs to be protected nationwide by this PRO Act.
Well, this is just kind of a sideline here, but yesterday Gavin Newsom got up. He was talking about the Doge thing that's coming up.
Yeah, that was he's useless. He is so idiotic.
California is the epitome of government efficiency. Yeah, they're only like $60 billion in debt. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's gobsmacking how incredibly out of touch and delusional he really is.
You get the impression every once in a while that they're actually trying to that he's just trying to see how far he can push the wall. I mean, it's like, it's like he says more and more outrageous things all the time, and like he's way. you and I can sit here and call him on it, but nobody in the government seems to do it. Well, of course, I mean,
unfortunately, the Republican Party is very marginalized there. I mean, they call him out, but it's not like it does any good. He's got kind of like Biden did, and the Democrats do. He has an entire media apparatus that kisses his behind. So
I want to get back to this labor thing in a second, but just where we're at right now, how come it does not seem like the Democrats understand why they lost?
They don't want to understand. they really don't. It's like, the stages of grief denial. They're stuck in denial. They're just under this delusion. We hate him. How come you don't? They have no respect whatsoever for the American people, pure and simple. They do not care.
I think what you just said about the labor union stuff in 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, that you're right. They don't have any respect for the American people because they're only doing this for their own benefit. The people obviously don't want it. So, okay. So the Sue woman who's acting right now, she was never confirmed because basically no one liked her. Or at least not enough people liked her, right?
She is, I thought she's up there with Buttigieg. Let's just put it that way. They're pretty much on the same level of wholly incompetent, wholly useless, plug ideas into their head, and that's what they'll spout. But otherwise, have no independent thought for themselves. And she doesn't. She's never run a business. She's always been a union apparatchik. And that is what she does. She does that bidding. And literally senators, the confirmation senators, Representative Kevin Kiley, my hero from California, who is on the House Workforce and Employment Committee, they have all grilled her and on what she has or has not done in the Department of Labor, the money that she's wasted. The money she wasted in California, she couldn't answer that. She refused to answer for that. And so, the Senate just said, we're not going to confirm her. Even some Democrats are actually mentioned in cinema. We're like, no, we don't like her. We're not going to confirm her. And she never got confirmed. Now Chuck Schumer had to push it back to Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, being half the brain that he is, he re-upped her again.
I don't know if you wrote about this or I read this somewhere else. Now there's a push to try to get it confirmed before he leaves office. It's like, what the hell?
It's delusional, but they want her to have the title of Secretary of Labor, so there's not an asterisk next to her name in the history books.
All right,
it's like, come on.
The woman that's been nominated right now, she's got a compound name. I can't remember what is her name.
Lori Chavez DeRaymer.
Okay, all right. So she is apparently, and you're not the only person who said this. She's a Republican in name only, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and so, all right. Can you explain something? Do you know anything about the internal workings of this? Do the unions get their claws in these people that are like, and basically, is there like a payment or something? It's like we're going to make certain your life's really comfortable if you help us out, or how does this work?
Some type of deal was made. I don't know, probably from the beginning with her, because Oregon is like totally progressive left. So anybody who's Republican is always going to be sus. Anyway, but her father was a Teamster. She claims that, I believed in, she ran on believing in small business, basically because she worked for her husband for 15, 20 years. Her husband built a business that hires independent contractors and moves them in and out. So this conflict of interest of, she was one of the few Republicans that sponsored the PRO Act. So this business of you're sponsoring the PRO Act that would destroy your husband's business, that makes no sense to me. And it's very suspect. Well, so right. She is basically, I consider her a Trojan horse. She's a Trojan horse to continue to embed and seed this union entrenchment, to destroy entrepreneurism, to destroy free enterprise, to destroy independent contractors.
Is she going to get confirmed, Jennifer?
Sadly, it's looking that way. I don't, she met with Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, Republican, who was actually on the HELP committee, the committee that vets the Department of Labor and Employment and all that. And he was just like, oh, she said she'd follow President Trump's blah, blah. I don't understand this. So she said she'd follow his agenda. It's like, she needs to be asked those hard questions. and I think they're just all, well, let's just rubber stamp her. They also are, so focused on, look at Pete Hegseth, look at, Tulsi Gabbard, so bright, shiny objects. Oh, these are the people who are controversial. And nobody wants to point out and show that, no, she's just as controversial. This is the livelihood, like you said, it's 27 states, right to work. This is the livelihoods of people who like their livelihoods, want to keep their livelihoods, make a ton of money doing what we do and being able to negotiate our own rates and have that relationship with another partner or several partners that we want. And the PRO Act wants to eliminate that. And it's like, well, we'll just revise it. Josh Hawley, who's another one that don't get me started on, he's rewriting the PRO Act. It's like, no, just toss it out. There is no use for the PRO Act. They want to make a case that we need this and the unions need this. No, as you said, either work the system or change the system in order to suit the way employment happens and leave us alone, or allow yourself to die.
Well, this is a bipartisan thing, but a lot of lawmakers think if they don't pass laws, they're not doing anything. I mean, it takes a lot of wisdom to not do something. It really,
That's a very, very good saying, Jim. Yeah, it does take a lot of wisdom to just leave stuff alone. And also understand that, they have a poor concept, many of them. Some of them don't. Tim Scott, Bill Cassidy, they understand. They get it. And we appreciate their help. Other members in Congress, Virginia Fox, they get it. But most of these people are just, saying gig work. Gig work is only like a minuscule aspect of independent contracting and entrepreneurism and small business. Yeah. It's a small aspect of it. And they want to fixate on Uber and Lyft when it's about medical anesthesiologists, nurse anesthesiologists. That's the business that DeReamer and her husband have. They contract out anesthesiologists and nurse anesthesiologists it's a very specialized field. The majority of them, 90%, are independent contractors. First of all, the work that they do, it makes a shit ton of money, excuse my French. Yeah. But it also doesn't require you being around 24/7 or working 15 hours. You go in, you put somebody to sleep, you go do something else, you come wake them up, you go. Yeah. You've earned your keep for the day.
Well, you're right. Those are highly, highly trained jobs. So those people get paid a lot of money. But as the libertarian in me, what's wrong with gig work? This whole thing started, like you said, in California about Uber. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of people who drive Uber aren't doing it full time. And the reason they like it is because of the flexibility of the schedule. That's the reason they like it. So I'm picking up a few extra bucks when I'd be sitting watching TV. There's nothing wrong with that. But apparently there is. That's the part And
the problem with it is that they can't control it. The unions can't tax it. They can't organize you into a union. And when they do organize you into a union, because there are some rideshare people that have tried to start unions, they end up getting the short end of the stick, the drivers. They could have earned more doing what they do, and they become a part of this union. And again, you get limited, you get restricted in how many hours. It's like, leave people. I'm with you in terms of libertarianism. Leave people alone. Let the market work. Let people do the work that they want to. And there are some people who, aren't necessarily suited to do what I do or do what someone else does. They don't like the ebb and flow. Yeah. The rest of us are perfectly fine with it. So leave us alone to do it. Right. Stop creating laws to restrict that and direct people where they need to go. People just have a poor concept of exactly what's involved in being an independent professional, and that's also the key. You know, there's nothing wrong with gig work. Absolutely nothing wrong. But not all independent contracting is gig work. It is nurse anesthesiologists. It is journalism.
Yeah.
It is emergency room doctors. It's your dog walker. It's your tutor. You know, that there's so many aspects of it. The small business owner. And they don't get that, how much of the industry is built around all of that and how much they destroy it.
Oh, hell, the whole American economy is built on this. I mean, the vast majority of people work for small businesses or themselves, the vast majority, well over 50%. And it's like we basically generate most of the money. You know, you stop and think about this.
2.7 billion, I believe, of economic might comes from us.
Yeah. 12,000 years of human history, of human civilization, and people are still the people still want to control other people. And you brought this up, and we're kind of getting into getting into economics here. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people don't understand, and it's been proven over and over again that the invisible hand is a real thing. The market just takes care of itself, and people have a hard time understanding this or accepting it. They say, well, somebody has to control it somewhere. No, they don't.
No,
they don't.
Yeah. You push yourself ultimately out of obsolescence, out of existence. Or you roll with technology and the way the world is working. It's as simple as that. It's not fun, but you get that stuff done, and you adjust and you adapt, and you roll with the tide. You roll with the punches.
That would be roll tide then, right?
Yeah, that would be roll tide.
All right. So you were talking about journalism, your field. So isn't it amazing what's kind of happening here about the mainstream media? I mean, we're talking about a real serious collapse. This is collapsing, and so. George Stephanopoulos, Trump sued ABC News and basically won. They settled.
Yeah.
You know? And everyone in the media, or at least those people, are livid. They're absolutely livid. But it's like, well, you just can't get on television and call somebody a rapist over and over again when when the jury literally said he didn't do it. I mean, well, I don't. I'm astonished by the stupidity of people.
Accurately report facts. That's all people want. And even in giving your opinion, it's like I bounce back and forth between the journalism and obviously on this shows like this and other things, the opinion side. But I still have to. My words have power. And my words matter. And so to have them be inaccurate or just deliberately inflammatory, just to be inflammatory, that's just, it smacks of inauthenticity. It's not integrous. And they stopped caring a long time ago. It's like, we're big and we're powerful and we can say whatever we want.
Right. That's right.
We can create whatever narrative that we want. And finally, it's coming back to bite them. And I don't think
anybody watching you here right now in this broadcast would confuse the fact that this is your opinion. I don't, it's like I'm constantly telling people on the show, this is not a news broadcast. I'm not a journalist. Most of what I say is speculative. It's my opinion. I don't think that I don't know. I don't, at this point, I don't even think you need a disclaimer,
Yeah.
But you're right. So George Stephanopoulos gets on This Week. He gets on a soapbox, which is supposedly a news program, and he's sprouting basic lies. I don't, it's like how stupid are you?
and lies it's like we all have an agenda of some form or another, but lies in order to push it in the direction of your agenda rather than just telling the truth and letting people to decide whether your agenda or whether someone else's agenda is the right one.
Right.
This is a person who, for all you young people out there, he handled all the bimbo eruptions for Bill Clinton.
Yes.
So,
you probably know this. He's not a trained journalist.
He's not. He's not. Never has been.
No. Right.
He was just a comms guy for Clinton and handled all his bimbo eruptions, and then suddenly he gets rewarded with the job at ABC.
Yeah, I know people who know him. I don't remember myself, but I know quite a few people know him. He's very short. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I've seen actually pictures. I think they posted a picture of him with Trump, and yeah, you know how tall Trump is, and yeah, George the short man's disease. It describes him well.
Well put. And you know, speaking of that, this is completely off topic. What is Barron Trump, like 7'5"? Like, what the hell? What's with that?
I think Trump is 6'5", and I think Barron is 6'7". So yeah, Barron's even taller than his father. He's a handsome little boy too.
He looks way taller. He does, and his father's tall. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's freaking amazing. I don't know. Just so I got a list here. I'm checking it twice. Okay, so. All right, Biden's got like 32 days left. This is it's like since the election, this has become more of a shit show than it even was before. I mean, in my mind, I don't know how you read this. He's like confirming all the worst things everybody ever thought about him. I'm not even talking about the Hunter Biden pardon, because I expected that and a whole bunch of people did. I just find it amazing there are people on the left that threw oh my God, how could you do this? Well, God, come on. How stupid are you? You know, it isn't just that. First of all, there's people who've come out the last couple days. James O'Keefe had a guy on video from the NSA, and I can't remember, another person went on the record saying that Biden's actually way worse off than anybody knows physically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did he even think he could run for re-election? I don't understand that. And then on top of that, I'll do another thing too. He's really pissed off. Now I could kind of, I understand, but the thing is, you've been in government 51 years. What were you expecting was going to happen? You're 81 years old, 82. And it's like Nancy Pelosi goes over to Europe, busts her hip. Okay, that's fine, but she's 84, man. Give it up. I mean, it's like, what, and I'm not trying to say, I'm getting up there too. I'm not trying to say people shouldn't do shit in their older age, but you don't have to be in Congress. You don't have to.
I mean, Mitch McConnell. It's
same thing.
It's truly an embarrassment.
It's
like, leave gracefully. Leave the stage gracefully. and again, like you said, it's not like you can't do something else. You're an elder statesman. You can go do think tank, but it's this desire to constantly power, and of course, you grift off of that power. Pelosi, Biden, grifters, McConnell, grifters. They've been grifting off of power for over 50 some odd years, and they don't know what else to do. They don't know anything else to do.
With the 4 years he was after he was vice president, with that exception, Biden has been in office just 51 years. He's at an elected position for 51 years. God almighty. Who has a job for that long? And the thing is, you work for the federal government. Okay, maybe you got quote unquote promoted. You became vice president, president. You're still in the federal government. It's the same. It's just like getting a promotion of work. You're still in the same company. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's just this really bothers me. It really does.
It should bother you, because I mean, I think of the people in Congress that I know of who Rand Paul, who's still a practicing ophthalmologist.
Yeah.
Thomas Massey, who owns his own farm and has like 1 million patents. The man's an inventor. Chuck Grassley. I mean, like I said, he's old, but if he chooses to retire, he's got a farm to go back to. He's has this whole farm cooperative.
Yeah.
So these are people that actually work and actually earn money and understand the value of earning money. They're not grifting off of the government, or at least I don't think they are.
No.
Particularly in the case of Paul and Mann, I know for sure.
Grassley's a real amazing person. He's 92 years old. He's still sharp as hell. I mean, it's like, I just find it incredible. But the thing is, now how long? I think he's been in office 42 years, and he's
been there a long time. Yeah.
It's like, he may be pretty cool, but still, it's like, go home. Give someone else a chance. I mean,
pass the mantle. To go biblical on you. I mean, I think of, Elijah and Elisha. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that biblical narrative, but Basically, God told Elijah, who was a great prophet in Israel, to choose a successor. And, he had to see Elijah pass into the other life in order to receive his mantle. Yeah. So this man followed him around and learned what he learned, and then got to see him pass, and his mantle fell, and it was, Elisha had his mantle. It's like, to me, that's what you do. You equip somebody else to do what you do.
Yeah,
you
right.
You want to make yourself obsolete.
Yeah, that's exactly what Biden said he was going to do when he got elected. He said it was going to be a one-term president.
He knew that. What I mean, first of all, look at who he selected as a vice president.
Yeah,
he knew.
Right.
They knew.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to admit, looking back here at this whole campaign, this whole debacle, it is astonishing how incompetent that woman is. I mean, my God.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just totally cringe. I that word tends to get overused, but she truly is cringe. It's like she's awkward, and not awkward in a good way. I'm all into nerds and awkwardness and things like that. It's not good with her. It's like she's trying. I don't even think she knows who she is, but she's trying to be something that she's not.
That's right. Well, she's nobody. Right. That's the problem. She doesn't know who she is because she isn't anybody.
Right.
That said, she says she wants to run for governor of California. I think she's got a good shot.
Go for it. Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm not there anymore, so
right.
I don't care. Go for it.
And people are leaving California in droves. I don't have to tell you that. You're not the only one. I mean, I think
still leaving. Yeah.
They figure they're going to lose, like, what is it? 4 representative seats in the next census.
At least.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, people are fed up of being robbed, of having their liberties restricted, of not being able to afford anything. I mean, seriously, it's like to just be able to afford a Christmas tree.
Yeah, really.
And, things like that is like an amazing thing, because the last few years in California wasn't happening.
Not to get too personal here, but I assume you have figured out, since you moved to Alabama, it's way cheaper, huh?
Yeah, most definitely. Oh yeah, we've cut our cost at least in half, and thankfully Lynn found work. Of course, service trades, he'll find a job forever. That's experience matters. So making the same money that he made in California, actually makes more, because
that's fantastic.
He actually gets overtime. He actually works full hours.
Yeah.
He's not sitting in traffic for half his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen, we've never talked about this before. Speaking of employment, what do you think is going to happen with all this AI stuff? I have a lot of people on here, a lot of scientists, a lot of computer people that talk about this. What's your opinion? What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, it definitely needs to be managed and regulated. Whether the government can do it, that's kind of scary. I have no idea, but it does need credible people with morality, with judgment, managing it, because it could be a dangerous thing. I mean, it's built to influence, and it's also built to, shall I say, eliminate certain things. And for something like that 1,500-page crapulous bill they tried to pass, I mean, AI read that and analyzed it like that. For something like that, AI is a beneficial tool. Yeah. But to replace actors and replace, people needing to be thinking and sentient, can't replace compassion. or reasoning, or the human element.
I've had 2 prominent scientists on the show in the last month who said, regardless what anybody says, AI will never have consciousness or a soul, just because of the way computers work. It never will. It can emulate that, but it will never really happen. So it can't really relate to humanity. But you were talking about the scary part of the government controlling this. So I've talked about this on a previous show. I don't know if you saw this. Mark Andreessen, the guy who started Netscape, one of the primary and he's an AI too. He said that he voted for Trump. He basically switched from Democrat to Republican because a few months ago he went to the White House for a meeting. They called him in and they told him straight out. They said the government is going to control this, and you don't have any say in it. And he said,
yeah.
The quote was, he was absolutely horrified, and of course he is, because they can't run anything, let alone AI. It's like, come on. And on top of that, all of innovation in America, getting back to, we're going full circle here, back to your thing about small business and people, entrepreneurs. All of it comes from small groups and individual people. So if there's going to be any innovation, that's where it comes from. So you're going to tell me that the government, whatever, the Commerce Department is going to do this bullshit? They can't do anything.
No, the Commerce Department has absolutely no concept of what innovation is. You can't manufacture that.
Yeah.
As well as there's something to be said for leaving people alone to tinker, to innovate, to do what they do. You don't build, the Soviet Union, places where you do have a restriction. You don't build that in those little vacuums.
No, the Soviet Union is a perfect example. People thought they could control something and couldn't, I mean, central thing. All right. One more thing before we leave here. But what do you think about the drone thing? These drones all over the place. You got any opinion on that?
Well, I know Alabama's not going to care. They'll just shoot them down. Like, those New Jersey folks are very polite. Yeah.
Are you seeing any in Tuscaloosa? Or more than normal, I mean?
No, I haven't seen anything. And Frank, and I'm kind of inclined to be on the side of what Trump said. The government knows exactly what's going on. They may not be telling you, but they know exactly what's going on. They know where they're coming from, what they're doing. Who knows? We'll probably find out sometime in the middle of Trump's term.
It's a huge metaphor, I think, for just the whole Biden administration. They know what they're doing. They won't tell us, and they won't. Can't you even tell us that we know, but we can't tell you?
Exactly, and then gaslight you, saying, "Oh, you really don't believe that. You really don't see that." No. I mean, if they could legitimately say, "You're not seeing anything," they try, because they did it with Biden and his dementia popsicle states.
Yeah, right. Jennifer, I can't thank you enough for joining us. It's fantastic.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You look so festive and everything. So you're gonna have a Merry Christmas, right? I saw on your was it Twitter? I think a picture of you and your husband. You guys look very happy.
Yeah. We become very popular in our old age. We got interviewed on a retirement podcast. So.
In that photo, was that snow I saw on the ground or ice on a lake or something like that? Was that?
No, that's the Tennessee River, and so we were by one of our favorite trails by the Tennessee River, and that was a bridge.
Forgive my ignorance. You get snow where you're living?
Yeah. Not all the time. We mostly get ice, frankly. And it lasts for 5 days to maybe even less. I think last time it lasted about 7 days, and then it melts off, and then everything's fine.
Well, you can put it in your martini,
Yeah, exactly.
I love you, girlfriend. Thank you. I really
thank you. Love you too. You have a wonderful holiday.
You do too. Thank you. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Bye. Hi all, Jim Peters again for Conk News. Let me tell you one of the greatest things about Conk News. It's free. It's completely and totally free. You don't need to register. You don't need to log in, subscribe, none of that stuff. Sure, they run a few ads on the front page, but if you're an old fogey like me, you might actually appreciate this, because when you check out Conk News at conk.com, you'll probably notice that it's the closest thing to an old-fashioned hard copy newspaper that you'll find online. The latest up-to-the-minute news from 75 high-quality sources collected every 3 hours, all laid out with photos and headlines directly from the articles. And when you click on a story, you go directly to that story. No ad page, no interstitial page, none of that stuff. This is the way online news is meant to be. And did I mention that it's completely free. Seriously, how much of stuff in America is free now, right? That's of quality anyway. So check this out for yourself. It's at conk.com, CONK.com. Conk News. Our thanks to Jennifer Oliver O'Connell from RedState and AdsAGirlTurns.com for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to her, especially about that labor relations stuff. She really knows a lot about that. And I gotta admit, I don't. So I'm glad she filled us all in. So I was, we were talking about with Jennifer about the drone thing in New Jersey. So I've basically given you over the last, 3 or 4 shows all the possible things that it could be. And some of them, like especially the alien thing, is pretty much down the list of plausibility. And I'm a big UFO guy here. I know that, but still, you got to be realistic. But now this has come up here about the UFO thing that I find kind of interesting. So there's people now who are saying, in other words, here's another alternative of what this could be. There's people who are saying that people are seeing drones, and there's also, the regular propeller drones, and some of these drones are quite large, right? They're like the size of cars or bigger. And then also people are seeing they're seeing these spheres, and one of the theories is that the drones are up there trying to see the spheres, and the spheres are alien. So and if the spheres are alien, they're basically probes, as far as anybody can tell. That's been a long time thing. These spheres have been seen all over the world, various sizes, anywhere from the basketball size to very large beach balls. And they've been all over the place, and they're metallic. It seems to be, and they're almost always completely spherical, and they have their own control. Propulsion. They seem to be intelligently controlled. Anyway, that's another theory. I'm astonished at how many people have gravitated toward the alien theories of this whole phenomena, because those are very unlikely. I mean, they really are. But still, people are gravitating toward it. And I said in a previous show, and I think it was like Monday, I said this. So another one of the theories is that the government is flying these drones to try to see how the public reacts to them in case or inevitably the aliens show up. That's the other thing too. So it's kind of like the War of the Worlds thing. Now, for those of you I'm not that old, but so I don't remember this, but I mean, I know history. It was in 1936 or 1938 that Orson Welles did a broadcast of the Mercury Theater, nationwide, and I can't remember what network that was on. I think it was on one of the NBC Blue or Red networks. I think, I'm not sure. And so they did this play on the radio, but the play was set up it was set up as a spontaneous news broadcast. That was what the play was, and they did drop at every commercial break. They did drop a thing saying that this is fiction. This is not real. Didn't matter. People went nuts. Now, people did not go nuts as much as kind of like folklore will have you believe. The play was set in northern New Jersey. That's another irony here too, is that it was the same location. And people in New York and northern New Jersey did truly go nuts, from what I understand. But the rest of the country, the panic was kind of overblown. That did not really happen. But still, it did happen in the location that the play was taking place in, or that it was set in. And so that was like almost 90 years ago. And there's people in the government that I and our friend the late Jazz Shaw have talked to about the fact that that's one of the reasons they don't want to tell the public about extraterrestrials, is because they think the public will panic. And everybody kind of looks back to this broadcast, which was, okay, granted, 80, 90 years ago, but still people saying, well, no, the public can't handle this. So it has occurred to me and other people that maybe the reason they're doing this just to see how, is an experiment to see how the public would handle it. Just like I have often said, I still think this is a very viable theory that COVID was released by the Chinese government just to see what would happen. So you got a virus. Okay, it's not much more deadly than the flu. Right? It's pretty much the flu. You know. I was working for Calling News. We were just starting to do our video broadcasts then, and so this is like in April of 2020. And for all practical purposes, the pandemic started on Saturday, March 10th of 2020. I still remember that. That was the day that all of a sudden on Friday, the 9th, everybody announced they were shutting down everything. So, okay, and we started doing these 15-minute news broadcasts about, which they're not doing anymore. We killed it for various reasons, but we started about a month later. And I started looking at the statistics on the CDC website and the state of Minnesota website. That's what I was using. I'm still based in Minneapolis, and the Calling News is too. So I started looking at these statistics. So after about 6 weeks, so we're into May then, it was pretty obvious to me that this was a disease of the old and the sick. It was obvious from the statistics. The only people died were really old people and people who were already infirmed. And then, if you know anything about viruses in the United States, uh, that the flu does pretty much the same thing. I mean, the flu in America, influenza, standard ordinary BS flu, kills about 40,000 people in America every year, and it's almost always uh, elderly and or infirm people, almost always. So the highest was 2018, 2 years before the pandemic, and in that year, the flu killed 80,000 people. That's the all-time high. And it wasn't, had to get quite a ways, well over a year into the pandemic before before COVID killed more people than the flu did. And I was saying, until that happens, if that, we get to that point, this is all BS. And we did surpass that point. But the thing is, there's there's some questions about how they calculated who died of COVID, because in some instances, hospitals were pressured to say that almost everybody who died of the flu died of COVID, and that wasn't true. So everyone seems to think that people were overcounted, but whatever. But okay, so what was my point here? That I know what my point was. Okay, so about the fact that the Chinese released this, the COVID virus is not, and we know this now for a fact, is not much more deadly than the flu. And so you're thinking, if you're in China and you want to control the world, you're thinking, well, let's just put this out and just release this into the air and see what happens. And so just, and that's a, and so yeah, America, Europe, most of the world went nuts for no reason. I don't have to tell you about what happened here. It's like, and people were fired from jobs for not getting vaccinated. And the real amazing thing is, and anybody who thought that the vaccination would, all right, the vaccination maybe controlled your ability to get COVID, but anybody who thought the vaccination was going to control the transmission of COVID was crazy. And I said that that's not the way vaccines work. And anybody who thought that was just freaking nuts. And so the world blew up. So, okay, getting back to the drone thing, if you want to test the idea of, well, let's see, if extraterrestrial came to Earth and made themselves known, if you wanted to run an experiment on what would happen, well, fly a bunch of drones and don't tell anybody what they're for. So the weird thing about the drones, the really weird thing, is supposedly people that have gone up in helicopters and other drones to find them and look for them say that as soon as they're spotted, they turn all their lights off, and so in the dark they basically become invisible. That's the really kind of crazy thing about the whole thing. So, I don't know. It's just a strange thing. Okay, I got two other things here regarding this is fantastic, because this covers two things in one swoop. There's a guy. Now this goes back to 1971. And D.B. Cooper jumped out of an airplane over Oregon, past Portland, and was never seen from again, with $250,000 in a giant backpack. And $5,000 of that money was recovered in the Columbia River or on the shore. And otherwise, the money's never been, it was all marked and all serial number traced. The money's never shown up. Nobody never found out who D.B. Cooper was. There is a family who thinks it might now, they've been talking about the fact that this researcher says it might be a guy named Richard McCoy, and he was one of the primary suspects all the entire time, and they think they might now have proof because they think that I didn't know this, and apparently maybe that was for good reason that no one knew, that the backpack that he jumped out of the airplane with was modified by the guy who prepared it for him, highly modified so that it would be highly recognizable. And his family said that in a storage unit, McCoy died years ago, actually got killed by the police in a shootout. That they have that backpack, that the alterations match what the guy who prepared it for him says. So if that's the case, if that's definitive, they will finally have found out who D.B. Cooper was. And like I said, McCoy has always been a prime suspect, so that's not really surprising. But at any rate, 1971, D.B. Cooper jumps out of this airplane. His actual name on the manifest was Dan Cooper. It got mangled by a reporter to D.B. is Dan Cooper, but he jumps out of the airplane. So the next day, the National Guard sends hundreds of people to these locations in the forest in Oregon to try to find this guy, or at least some remnant of or whatever. So one of the troopers says, and this is a really weird thing. This is from a blog post, but apparently this guy's been talking about his story even though he remains anonymous. He says he's marching. You know how they do searches, and that is you put a bunch of guys on a line, and you're in charge of basically like 10 feet on either side of you or something like that. So that's you just stick to your area, and then we got a whole bunch of people sticking to their area. So he says they're marching through the forest, and there's a guy like 20, 30 feet next to him. He said he was on the end of the line, so there's nobody on his left. There's somebody on his right, and the reason there's nobody on the left is because he's next to a cliff. That's part of the story. So he says he's marching around, and they're looking at something. He's looking at something. Well, that doesn't kind of look weird. And he's looking at this growth, and all of a sudden the growth stands up, and he says it's an ape-like creature or a humanoid-like creature that's 11 feet tall. He says it was about twice as tall as him. It's huge. It's enormous. He said he looked in his eyes. It looked human, but he was covered by fur and hair. And he said this creature slapped him on the face with the back of his hand and knocked him over the cliff. And he fell about 30, 40 feet down the cliff. So this entire scenario, or his entire encounter, lasted about less than 10 seconds. And that's as good a look as he got of this creature. But yeah, so it's a Bigfoot story with a D.B. Cooper story. Of course, they never found Cooper, never found anything, never found a single shred of anything he was wearing. The only thing is, and they've been analyzing this to death for like 50 years, because it's been over 50 years now. He left his clip-on tie on the airplane, and they've run DNA tests on it. They've tested this tie to death. It's unbelievable. That's about the only thing he left behind. But anyway, it's kind of interesting about this. There's a lot of people who say Bigfoot, and I've talked to Larry Newman, our friend here, and he's a official Bigfoot investigator for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, the BFRO, and they are basically the Bigfoot version of MUFON, the major UFO organization. I have come to the conclusion that when I started doing this show and we started talking to the Bigfoot people, and I've been doing incarnations of the show for several years, but I never started talking to the Bigfoot people until relatively recently, maybe the last couple of years. I had nothing. I had no thing. I had no foot either way in either camp. I've come to, but if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I'd say that 60-40 is real. Now I'm starting to think 70-30 is real. And that's because there's so many people who say they've seen Bigfoot. And like in the UFO thing, if you discount 95% of them, who are either mistaken. I mean, a lot of people mistake grizzly bears for Bigfoot because grizzly bears can walk upright. So there you go. That'll scare the crap out of you, and you get a grizzly bear standing on its hind legs. It's pretty big. It's pretty tall. So there's a lot of misidentification, just like there is in the UFO field. We know for a fact, and this is, I hate to give Mayorkas, our Homeland Security guy, any credit, but he is right about this. This thing with the drones in New Jersey, the most of these things have been misidentified. They're probably just regular aircraft. And we know this because we know consistently for the last 50, 60 years that 95% of all the UFO reports are misidentified as ordinary. They are not identified as ordinary phenomena. They're airplanes or atmospheric crap or weather or clouds or something. We know that. So I'm assuming it's the same with Bigfoot. But the thing is, but you take 95% of those sightings of Bigfoot out of the equation, and you're still left with quite a few sightings. I mean, it's like, so I'm more and more convinced all the time. Larry says he started working for the BFRO as a skeptic. They asked him because he was a trained police investigator, so he knew protocol and all that sort of stuff. And he said he was a skeptic until he was in the Ozarks one night. He said it's pitch black. It's the middle of the night. We're in the middle of freaking nowhere, and they had an infrared camera. And he said he watched a family of Bigfoot through the infrared camera for an hour. And he said after that he was convinced that Bigfoot was real. And he said off the camera, just looking, you couldn't see anything. He said it was pitch black. You couldn't see a damn thing. But through the camera, it was obvious what he was looking at. So that, so he's become I hate to use the term believer because that seems to indicate there's some belief, but there's evidence, there's evidentiary evidence. I'm making shit up. What the hell? Okay, last thing about the fact that it's been brought to the attention of the press that on the International Space Station, they don't serve broccoli. No, not broccoli, Brussels sprouts. They don't serve Brussels sprouts because Brussels sprouts make you fart, and there's no place to go on the International Space Station to escape it. So no sprouts on the ISS. Can't open the window. Can't do that. Can't open the door. Can't leave. You're trapped. And I haven't looked at this yet. I just saw this today, but they've been saying for months now that the two astronauts that are stuck on the ISS because their Boeing spacecraft didn't work right were supposed to come back in January, and apparently now that's going to be delayed too. So those people, oh my God. Now, you don't have to worry about them. There's plenty of, matter of fact, they were on a supply mission. They went up there with supplies. So there's plenty of food, all that sort of stuff. They got plenty to do. That's not a problem. But the fact is they're going to end up being stuck there for, I think, over a year. So when all is said and done. Oh, that's fun. All right. So tomorrow we're supposed to do our last broadcast on Blog Talk Radio. Now they are folding. Blog Talk Radio is closing on January 31st, and we were going to do our last broadcast tomorrow. We have not been able to connect to Blog Talk Radio for 2 weeks now. So we're going to try one more time, but Santa's joining us tomorrow. We're hoping to take calls for Santa, but I'm guessing based on previous experience now, we couldn't connect again tonight. So now I promised you, and it's really true, that when we come back, we're going to be back on Monday, January 6th. We'll have a new call-in system. We will. It will be independent. Right now, the thing about Blog Talk Radio is that we use their call-in system. So if we can't connect to Blog Talk Radio, we can't take calls. But we will have a new independent call-in system so you'll be able to call in. So, because I like taking the phone calls, I like hearing from you people. The amazing thing is, I'm not telling anything out of school here. We don't have the biggest viewership on the planet, but compared to other radio stations, we get a lot of phone calls per capita, or however you want to measure it. So I'm talking to Michael Harrison at Talkers Magazine. He's basically kind of the grand poobah of talk radio in the United States. And, he says every radio station, even the biggest ones in New York and Washington and Chicago, they're having trouble getting phone calls. and we don't get a lot of them. But considering the fact that considering what our viewership and listenership is, we do quite well. And I have to say too, we've got very few trollers now. Tomorrow, if you want to call in a troll, I suppose it's the last show. It's our last hurrah on Blog Talk Radio. So yeah, go ahead. I want to thank you folks very much for listening and for listening and watching. It's a pleasure for me to do this. I really enjoy it, and thank you for making it possible. So I will leave you for tonight. Tomorrow we'll have Christmas greetings, but for tonight we're done here. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Take care.